This letter is about death and mortality, so you might think this one's going to be a bit of a downer. But ironically, it's not. It's kind of encouraging, actually, because in certain circumstances, the devils hate death even more than we do. In this letter, we also find out that when we are young, we tend to be more impervious to demonic attacks. This letter is a wake-up call to the middle-aged.
When I told you not to fill your letters with rubbish about the war, I meant, of course, that I did not want to hear your rather infantile rhapsodies about the death of men and the destruction of cities. Insofar as the war really concerns the spiritual state of the patient, I naturally want full reports. And on this aspect you seem singularly obtuse. Thus you tell me with glee that there is reason to expect heavy air raids on the town where the creature lives. This is a crying example of something I have complained about already. Your readiness to forget the main point in your immediate enjoyment of human suffering. Do you not know that bombs kill men? Or do you not realize that the patient's death at this moment is precisely what we want to avoid?
To the younger devil, the distress that is created by all the death and destruction seems like a good thing. But Screwtape explains that there are far more important things at play than war in the patient's life.
At the present moment, as the full impact of the war draws nearer and his worldly hopes take a proportionately lower place in his mind, full of his defense work, full of the girl, forced to attend to his neighbors more than he has ever done before, and liking it more than he expected, taken out of himself, as the humans say, the daily increase in conscious dependence on the enemy, he will almost certainly be lost to us if he is killed tonight. This is so obvious that I am ashamed to write it. I sometimes wonder if you young fiends are not kept out on temptation duty too long at a time. If you are not in some danger of becoming infected by the sentiments and values of the humans among whom you work.
The devils have been working hard in the last few centuries, perpetuating the secular modern way of understanding life, the universe, and everything. And their work has paid off, so much so that it appears to be affecting even the young tempters.
Modern humans, of course, do tend to regard death as the prime evil, and survival as the greatest good. But that is because we have taught them to do so. Do not let us be infected by our own propaganda. I know it seems strange that your chief aim at the moment should be the very same thing for which the patient's lover and his mother are praying, namely his bodily safety. But so it is. You should be guarding him like the apple of your eye. If he dies now, you lose him. If he survives the war, there is always hope. The enemy has guarded him from you through the first great wave of temptations. But if only he can be kept alive, you have time itself for your ally. The long, dull, monotonous years of middle-aged prosperity or middle-aged adversity are excellent campaigning weather.
It is demonic propaganda that death is the prime evil and survival is the greatest good. We inherently seem to know that there are things worse than death, though, don't we? That's why during turmoil and calamitous events, human beings are generally drawn toward the things of heaven. We dig more deeply into our work. We value our personal relationships more. We love our neighbors better. We attend to things above ourselves. And we become more dependent on our Lord. Screwtape explains that the goal is to keep us alive until we are middle-aged, when they can use adversity or prosperity to their advantage.
You see, it is so hard for these creatures to persevere. The routine of adversity, the gradual decay of youthful loves and youthful hopes, the quiet despair, hardly felt as pain, of ever overcoming the chronic temptations with which we have again and again defeated them, the drabness with which we create in their lives, and the inarticulate resentment with which we teach them to respond to it. All this provides admirable opportunities of wearing out a soul by attrition.
So that's how they work through adversity on people in their middle years. But some people of that age are quite prosperous. These too are vulnerable to the demonic attacks.
If, on the other hand, the middle years prove prosperous, our position is even stronger. Prosperity knits a man to the world. He feels that he is finding his place in it. Well, really, it is finding its place in him. His increasing reputation, his widening circle of acquaintances, his sense of importance, and the growing pressure of absorbing and agreeable work build up in him a sense of being really at home on earth, which is just what we want. You will notice that the young are generally less unwilling to die than the middle-aged and the old.
Yikes, that one hits a little close to home. Those who are middle-aged are in great danger, whether your life is going well or not so well. Screwtape laments that the life of a human being is so short. It doesn't give them nearly enough time to get a hold of many human souls.
The truth is that the enemy, having oddly destined these animals to life in his own eternal world, has guarded them pretty effectively from the danger of feeling at home anywhere else. That is why we must often wish long life on our patients. 70 years is not a day too much for the difficult task of unraveling their souls from heaven and building up a firm attachment to the earth. While they are young, we find them always shooting off at a tangent. Even if we contrive to keep them ignorant of explicit religion, the incalculable winds of fantasy and music and poetry, the mere face of a girl, the song of a bird, or the sight of a horizon are always blowing our whole structure away.
You know how boomers and Gen X folks are always bashing away on the millennials and the Gen Zs? They might have some special wisdom simply by being young. The same wisdom that we outgrew. Screwtape continues explaining the advantages of youth over even experience. All this is to say that there are some very important things that the older generation need to learn from the younger, at least to look at them so as to recall what we've forgotten.
The young will not apply themselves steadily to worldly advancement, prudent connections, and the policy of safety first. So inveterate is their appetite for heaven that our best method at this stage of attaching them to earth is to make them believe that earth can be turned into heaven at some future date by politics or eugenics or science or psychology or whatnot. Real worldliness is a work of time, assisted of course by pride, for we teach them to describe the creeping death as good sense or maturity or experience. Experience, in the peculiar sense we teach them to give it, is, by the by, a most useful word. A great human philosopher nearly let our secret out when he said that where virtue is concerned, experience is the mother of illusion. But thanks to a change in fashion, and also of course to the historical point of view, we have largely rendered his book innocuous.
Again, Screwtape hints that we had better be reading old books and taking them seriously. It was Immanuel Kant that said that where virtue is concerned, experience is the mother of illusion. If only we'd listen to the truth when it is presented to us, that we would read to find out the truth and not just to be smart.
How valuable time is to us may be gauged by the fact that the enemy allows us so little of it. The majority of the human race dies in infancy. Of the survivors, a good many die in youth. It is obvious that to him, human birth is important chiefly as the qualification for human death, and death solely as a gate to that other kind of life. We are allowed to work only on a selected minority of the race, for what humans call a normal life is the exception. Apparently he wants some, but only a very few, of the human animals with which he is peopling heaven to have had the experience of resisting us through an earthly life of 60 or 70 years. Well, there is our opportunity. The smaller it is, the better we must use it. Whatever you do, keep your patient as safe as you possibly can.
Screwtape asserts that time is very valuable to the purposes of hell, and this is why God gives the devil so little time to execute these purposes. God takes most people into eternity before the devils can make any headway. If you are watching this video, you are one of the very few that God has allowed the experience of resisting. If you belong to Jesus, the devils are doing everything they can to keep you alive, because death is not the worst thing that can happen to you. In letter 29 of the Screwtape letters, Screwtape advises Wormwood how to exploit the fear and anxiety of his human patient during wartime. He discusses the benefits of pushing the patient toward either extreme cowardice or reckless courage, both of which can be manipulated to lead him away from God. Thank you, and we'll see you there.